So question one, how would cases of fetal deformities, Down syndrome, and pregnancies from rape affect the abortion issue? Wow, that's a lot of heavy hitters in one question. So in regards to fetal deformities or Down syndrome, I have one question. Should we kill newborns with physical deformities and Down syndrome? We're all going to say no. Now those of you who are pro-choice and are looking at me like, what a reductionistic white privileged male. But if the case I've offered today is true and logical and sound, that if the science of embryology is right, that from the moment of conception, the unborn child is a distinct, living, and whole human being and shares our common human nature, and if any difference you can offer as a justification for women to have the right to obtain an abortion is also a difference that all of us born people share, then we're kind of in a moral dilemma. Because if you use those differences to justify killing the unborn, I can use those differences to justify killing you. Now, that would be illegal, but abortion is legal, but it would still be immoral. And so, if the science of embryology in the case that I've laid out this morning is right and true, then it would be just as horrific to kill newborn children with physical deformities or Down syndrome as it would be to kill unborn children. Now, many people, of course, take preventative measures in terms of children with physical deformities or Down syndrome. There's a test you can do called amniocentesis, and basically that's supposed to tell you if your unborn child has Down syndrome in the womb. Now, interestingly enough, that test is not always foolproof. I've actually had two different times I was speaking at a high school, and I brought this up and I said sometimes women get this test and they're told their children has Down syndrome, so they're advised to get an abortion. They don't, and the child ends up being fine. And I had two different students at two different times at two different high schools that I spoke at who said, oh, actually that was my story. I was actually diagnosed with Down syndrome through amniocentesis in the womb, and guess what? I don't have Down syndrome. Authors Mansfield, Hopfer, and Marteau, in a study with a part of the Psychology and Genetics Research Group, report that 90% of babies diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted. Now, if you don't think the unborn child is a human being, if you want to deny science and treat them as floppy tissue, then that won't bug you at all. But if you think the unborn child is a distinct, living, and whole human being with value and should be protected, then that should be very troublesome to you. Especially when you consider the question of what percentage of those children actually didn't have Down syndrome at all. Hardship does not justify homicide. I am going to obviously admit that the difficulties that associate raising a child with physical deformities or Down syndrome are massive. I've been a part of different churches where family members there had children with Down syndrome. I've been friends with people whose children have Down syndrome. So I know, by way of association, some of the burdens that are incurred in those situations. But hardship doesn't justify homicide. If we're really concerned about the hardships of raising children with Down syndrome, hey, why don't we just wait and see if those children actually have Down syndrome when they're born, so we avoid killing any babies who don't have it, but we're told that they did through amniocentesis, and then if those newborn children end up doing having Down syndrome, let's kill them then. Because then that way at least we're making sure we cover our bases, we don't kill any children who don't have Down syndrome because we thought they did. We all think that's atrocious. Why? Because they're outside the womb? Because they're a newborn now? What's changed? The newborn's a little bit larger, located elsewhere, a little bit more developed, and maybe a little less dependent on the mother. Should that make it okay to kill the newborn child? Of course not. So it shouldn't make it okay to kill the unborn child in the womb. These issues are difficult. They do involve a lot of emotional, psychological, and financial burdens, but hardship doesn't justify homicide, and we wouldn't accept killing newborn children with physical deformities or Down syndrome. It's better to suffer evil than to inflict evil. And I think that's something that many of us can agree with. In regards to issues of rape or incest, pregnancies that result as a result of rape or incest, I know, because I'm involved in this issue, that there are probably far more pregnancies that resulted from rape than even the studies and statistics show. The Gumacher Institute, which is Planned Parenthood's statistical research branch, reports that around 1% of the abortions annually in the United States are abortions that were performed on women whose pregnancy was conceived because of rape. And I'm willing to acknowledge that that's probably higher, and I know that on college campuses in particular, that this is a growing problem. But Once a child has been conceived, once a child is now there, I just don't believe that the unborn child should have to suffer for the crimes of the father. In a situation where a pregnancy has occurred because of rape, there are three parties involved: the rapist, the mother, and the unborn child. My question to those of you who associate as pro-choice would be this: who should we kill? I don't think any of us think that it's okay to kill the mother because she was raped. But those of you who are informed know that in some areas of the world they practice that. They call it honor killings because of the cultural shame associated with being raped. That's horrific and that's barbaric. So we would never kill a woman because she was raped. Now some of you may think that we should kill a rapist. It's illegal. But yes, if anyone should be punished, it seems like that should be him. But it's actually illegal for a mother who was raped to kill her rapist. Okay? So we're not allowed to kill him. So kill a baby? That just doesn't make sense to me. He or she is just as innocent as his or her mother. Let's punish the only guilty party, the rapist. The last question I pose in regards to pregnancies that arise because of rape is, what should we do with children who remind us of painful deaths? A lot of times this is some of the rhetoric that is associated with this argument on the pro-choice side is pro-lifer, you would force a woman who has a pregnancy because of rape to carry that child. What if that child looks like the rapist? What if it even doesn't? But the fact that that baby exists makes the mother remember every day of what she had to go through. You're barbaric, pro-lifer. You would force a woman to go through that. My response question is, what should we do with children who remind us of painful events? What should we do with the toddlers in a family that went through a divorce who look like the father, and every time the mother sees their children, it reminds them of the bleak father who left them? Should we kill those children because it reminds the mothers of painful events? Come on. If we're going to punish anyone, let's punish the only guilty party, the rapist. Last comment I would make on this topic is that if you're pro-choice and you use the argument of cases of pregnancies arising from rape to justify abortion, my question would be, if we're willing to set aside those cases, are you willing to join me in trying to make all other cases of abortion illegal because they don't arise from rape? If not, then you're just using circumstances of rape to veil your true position, which is that you believe women should have the right to an abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy for any reason or no reason at all. So don't appeal to rape if you actually think that abortion should be legal for any reason, because you're just using the exception to argue for the norm. Secondly, what if making abortion illegal forces some women into dangerous back alley abortion clinics? Paraphrase. What if making it illegal for mothers to kill their children causes some women to injure themselves while trying to illegally kill their children? That's really what this question is asking. I'll say that again. The question is, what if making abortion illegal forces some women into dangerous back alley abortion clinics? Paraphrase, what if making it illegal for mothers to kill their children causes some women to injure themselves while trying to illegally kill their children? This is tantamount to saying that because some people die trying to kill others, the state should make it safe and legal for them to do so. Oh, let's see, these bank robbers have been traveling around Orange County and LA County. They've hit up 2 banks and robbed already. And in the 3rd bank they were robbing, a civilian shot one of the guys in the leg to try to stop him. This bank robber got hurt while breaking the law. Let's make bank robbery legal to protect bank robbers from getting hurt while breaking the law. This is the reasoning behind this objection. Because some people die trying to kill others, the state should make it safe and legal for them to do so. Also, I don't like this language when pro-choice advocates say, you're going to force women into back alley abortion clinics. I actually have more respect for women in assuming that in a world where abortion is made illegal, that they will be strong enough individuals to not feel forced into back alley abortion clinics. I actually have more respect for women because this assumes that women will need abortion, that they'll seek it out, even if abortion is illegal or not. Women don't need the option of killing their children to feel or be empowered. Marianne Warren, an abortion choice philosopher, in her book on the moral and legal, on her article on the moral and legal status of abortion in 1984, actually agrees with me. She says, quote, "The fact that restricting access to abortion has tragic side effects does not in itself show that the restrictions are unjustified, since murder is wrong regardless of the consequences of forbidding it. Question 3, how does the baby's ability to feel pain impact the question of a woman's right to an abortion? Well, my response would be that it makes the horrific practice of abortion even more horrific. Because even if the baby couldn't feel pain, abortion would still be wrong. There is a disease that born people can have where they cannot feel pain. I'm blanking on the term on it right now. I brought it up in our debate a year and a half ago. But there's a disease where you can actually injure people and they won't feel a thing. Does that make it okay to slit their wrists? No. So even if the baby can't feel pain, it would still be wrong to dismember it through legalized abortion. Can we kill other people because they can't feel pain? Of course not. So the fact that the baby can feel pain makes the practice of abortion that much more horrific. Many of you are probably aware that just a couple months ago, actually, the Senate decided to not pass the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, which would have made abortions illegal when the baby can feel pain, which is at 20 weeks. And this is backed by the science of fetal pain. Only 2 Democrats in the Senate voted to pass this bill, to say, yes, when babies can feel the pain of dismemberment, those abortions should be illegal. So make no mistakes. If you're pro-choice, if you're part of the pro-choice position, you are pro-abortion. Because your Democratic Party platform that defends your position, only 2 of your representatives in the Senate try to protect babies who can literally feel their rings getting ripped off during abortion. And this is based off the science of fetal pain. We know that at 20 weeks, the unborn child can feel the pain of dismemberment. In fact, some pro-choice advocates have proposed that we should give anesthesia to babies before an abortion so they don't feel the pain of dismemberment. How's that for cognitive dissonance? Robert J. White, a PhD and professor of neurosurgery at Case Western University, said, quote, and I have all my citations on all of these if you'd like to see this later, quote, an unborn child at 20 weeks gestation is fully capable of experiencing pain. Without question, abortion is a dreadfully painful experience for any infant subjected to a surgical procedure. Question 4, how does a baby's need to be loved impact the abortion question? If you believe that born babies, properly defined as infants, deserve to live and should have a family that loves them, why shouldn't the same be said about unborn children? What is the fundamental difference between the born babies that I'm going to assume all of us are going to believe ought to be protected from being killed? What is the fundamental difference between those babies and unborn babies that many of you believe mothers should have the right to kill? And I'm going to propose a thought that I've been proposing all morning, which is that whatever that difference is, whatever it is, it's also a difference found amongst born people. So if born children have the need to be loved, have the right to be loved, and not harmed by their family, then the same is true of the unborn, because the unborn shares our common human nature.